Sri Jiva Gopal. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda, and welcome everyone to this Sunday morning Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam reading and discussion with the Hare Krishna Society Prabhupada Disciples Association. And this is a global broadcast, crossing over many, many continents and nations. And we are very happy to be able to bring this information to you from Śrīla Prabhupāda's unadulterated, unedited books, which are the foundation or the basis of our program. Because spiritual life requires discipline, a certain type of discipline, a certain amount of renunciation, as demonstrated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. Excuse me for 1 second. Kim, hello? Kim, please close the door. I'm doing a broadcast. Sorry about that. So the idea is that renunciation is part of the spiritual process of Krishna consciousness. And I've noticed as one progresses through life, we have a tendency to accumulate things. It's extraordinarily entangling. And there are many aspects to attachments and many aspects to entanglement. We won't discuss them today, but they do unfold. I can remember Yashodanandana Prabhu, when we first joined the movement, we were completely free. We had no attachments, no entanglements. We just showed up at the temple in the Brahmachari ashram back then, and all our possessions were in a paper box. I used to keep mine in a BTG box. That was it. And we had 17 men living on the third floor of the Gerrard Street Temple. And everybody just used to lay in these little rooms. Everyone had a little space where you could roll out your sleeping bag at night, and you got in, and then in the morning you got up. We used to have lines in the morning for taking a shower, because all we had was one bathtub on the third floor. And you have like 17 men trying to get ready for Mangal Arti. So we had a system. Actually, it became like this, that everyone was wearing their kalpans. I took a hose. They'd come in, I'd hose them down. They'd rinse off, they'd soap up, then I'd rinse them off, and they got out. So it was like a 2 or 3 minute experience for each brahmachari. It was absolutely different than the way life is nowadays for most of us. But anyway, we went through that, and it was interesting to note that everybody was very happy. You know, there was a bliss and freedom when you're not entangled. You know, and we all get in this path of entanglement. It's very complicated. The web once woven cannot be undone. The web of karma is very complex. And Lord Chaitanya was trying to personally demonstrate by his example how to live and be free from the illusion of material life, because material life is not real. It is absolutely a mirage in the desert of existence. And although we think it's real, our concepts are real, the governments are real, everything else is mine, I, me, and mine, my money, my car, my children, my house, like that. You just get caught up in this. So Lord Chaitanya, set by his personal example and by the 6 Goswamis that he inspired to take up the mission, and of course our spiritual master Śrīla Prabhupāda, who really was the personification of renunciation. I can remember when he came to Toronto, Krishna Katha, in 1976 to celebrate the acquisition of this building just south of what's called Forest Hill. In Toronto, the richest section of Toronto is Forest Hill. And down from it, there's a college called Upper Canada College. And the Avenue Road Church, the Hare Krishna temple, is just 1 kilometer south of this very elite area. The Prabhupada sent me a letter. He said, "This is a topmost triumph that you've got this for Krishna." Topmost triumph. So Prabhupada was very appreciative of the hard work that our entire group did to acquire this building. And now it stands as a monument to Krishna consciousness. He told me, put up a sign on the tower of the chanting of the holy names, so the whole city could see the holy names being transmitted to everyone as they drove down this main thoroughfare, which is called Avenue Road from the 401, where tens of thousands of cars pass by there every day. And with great difficulty, we did mount some signs, Hare Krishna signs, on the building, front and back. And in this way, every day when people came to work, they would be blessed to see the holy name. And we used to have a sign up on the back of the church, and we would put a Bhagavad Gita verse up there every day so people could read the Bhagavad Gita while they're driving by the temple. So a sign a business with no sign is a sign of no business. That's a saying. Now they've taken down that sign and they stopped putting up the Gita verses. They don't put the lamps in the signs that we put these signs up. There were lit signs. They let the lights go out. So this is unfortunately the situation now, but nonetheless, Prabhupada was very happy that we got the church. And when he came, it's interesting to note, and I'll finish up, he came with a small little plastic suitcase, not $1,000 set of luggage for the new sannyasis. That's what I heard. They're collecting money to buy $1,000 sets of, I still remember that. Yashoda, he came with a little plastic bag with his possessions in it. And not once did he ever ask me who was on title for the church. You know, who owned it. He didn't ask once. He didn't ask anything about the personal matters regarding the acquisition of this very, very expensive piece of real estate in Toronto. It's worth over $30 million now. It's just up from the Parliament buildings. Of course, Kirtananda was, Gopal and the other people destroyed the whole thing, tragically. Destroyed it by their whimsical ways, which is a lot of people do, by whimsical ways. They carry on presenting philosophy that's not true to justify their own personal ambitions. This is a tragedy beyond, extremely tragic. A lot of the temples, like the one in New York, was sold. Prabhupada said, never sell this building. They sold it. What kind of madness has gone on in the name of Chaitanya Vaishnavism and renunciation? It's a sad, sad comment, and a reality that all of us in this group should be aware of. Be aware of this. Do not deny it. A lot of people criticize us. Why you bring this up? Because it's reality. If you didn't have anything to do with it, then you wouldn't feel any problems. But everyone here is in the same boat. If you say anything, they kick you out. They remove you because they don't like you. Or someone will come along and criticize us because we're presenting Prabhupada as a pure devotee, representative of Lord Chaitanya. And we're his disciples. And people fault find us without fail. This is going on everywhere, actually. On everywhere. Whether it's governments or sports or any other activity. This mundane mentality is part of this illusion that people live in. The mind is not the friend of the conditioned soul. So one has to be careful to guard against these diseases that infect the mission of Lord Chaitanya. It's a disease. Some people would say, well, how come you're speaking that way? This is called the sauce. Hey, Krishna Katha? You give the sauce to people that are in Maya. You don't pat them on the back and go, oh, good, Prabhu. Life is what it is. And we're old men. We have every right to speak the truth to people that are thinking, oh, that life is just some kind of journey of fun and happiness. There is no happiness in this material world, and this place is a place of misery, period. And Krishna consciousness is the gateway out of it by the mercy of Śrīla Prabhupāda. So something to think about as we carry on here. And we're going to read today from a letter that was sent to Prabhupada. Now, I thought about reading this letter. The reason we're going to read it is just to get some insight into the mentality of the people from India that Prabhupada was trying to engage in the mission and their particular perspective on it while he was here in New York back in 1966, struggling to survive. And this is a letter from Mangala Niloy Brahmachari, and he's writing back to Prabhupada. Thank you. Sri Chaitanya Gaudiya Mat, Assam. So he's writing from India. Give us some insight. With due obeisances to the lotus feet of Sri Bhagavat Purushas, Pujapad Maharaj received your affectionate note of 23,666 yesterday. Yesterday only I returned from Shillong, the chief minister with other ministers and elites of the city all appreciated our ideas. We were there for 40 days. Some collections also were made from the government level for the completion of the Sankirtan Bhaban undertaken by me here. About 50,000 are already spent. Another 12,000 are required for the completion of the work. Though the undertaken work is going on rapidly with the intention to open the door during Sri Krishna Janmashtami festival, yet I'm always ready to leave for America or UK, anywhere if I can avail such opportunity. India's work will be done anytime, today or hereafter. But Mahaprabhu's thought to the foreigners in the foreign countries is very, very encouraging to me. I have the picture to get myself at your disposal. I shall be sentencing your lofty ideas. I prayed my Guru Maharaj Ji in my previous letters to give proper attention to your foreign preachings. Maharaj Ji wrote me to reply that you wanted to do something substantial at Jhansi sometime before, and you wanted some brahmacharis in that connection from him, but he was disappointed after seeing your silent attitude. So one of the godbrothers reacting to him, to Śrīla Prabhupāda. So he's likely to take proper initiative if there is some bona fide records during your correspondence with Sri Padma Sringhayana regarding Sri Radha Krishna Temple at America and the amount he proposes to spend thereof. He wants me to write to you, write to him clearly regarding your aims and objects. Even if he wrote to me that it is Padampati wants, actually he is a big man to do anything and easily and properly regarding foreign exchange, etc. If the program is not bona fide, the approach to a big personality will be ludicrous, no doubt. So kindly think over the matter and do the needful. If you want me and me only, I shall be at your beck and call, no doubt. I am anxious to know about no objection report. If factually I am to start by the end of this month, July, as per your previous note, I pray from you some encouraging reply early to the address given above. Mridanga and Chutter, etc. are minor things, and I shall purchase them. You need not be worried about that. With Dandavat pranams to your lotus feet, again unworthy servant Mangala Niloy Brahmachari. So here Prabhupada's trying to engage some people in his efforts. We're seeing that there's some kind of doubts in the minds of his godbrothers. Actually, there were a lot of doubts and a lot of misgivings. And eventually we'll learn as things unfold that eventually when Prabhupada started to show a great deal of success in his preaching, a lot of enviousness came out against him by his godbrothers. And this was very unfortunate. But this is the reality of the material world. Everyone is quarreling and fighting in this Kali Yuga. We'll move forward with the chanting of the Jaya Radha Madhava prayers, and then we'll have the reading and discussion of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam from, maybe you could show those beautiful Bhagavatams, Krishna Katha, that we're now planning to print. Yes, the original Delhi Bhagavatams, and at the end of the program today, we'll show you our GoFundMe program. There it is there. Yeah, there's the first canto. These are the new books that, the old new books that we want to focus on and distribute in India, yes, and in America and throughout
Hare
the
Krishna.
world. Yeah, there we go.
There's
Look at
one,
there.
two,
And there's one more. Look at that nice
and
gate.
three.
Yeah, from Madhuha, our friend. So these are
And
the
this is
books.
the box they'll come in
Okay, thank you.
from India, just like
Yeah.
Prabhupada.
Beautiful. So this
Right.
is a campaign we're doing, and we'll introduce that later to all of you. And you can support it if you so wish with a generous donation. It'll help us preserve the legacy of Śrīla Prabhupāda into the future. All glories to the Sankirtan mission of Śrīla Prabhupāda and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Jai.
Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Banachari Yamuna Tira Banachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Muspa Paramahansa Paribhrajagacharya Sattva Small Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava ki Jai Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki Jai Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhakti ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Mokh Gopinath Sam Khund Radha Khund Girivadan ki Jai Vrindavan Dham ki Jai Navadvip Dham ki Jai Ganga Mai ki Jai, Jamuna Mai ki Jai, Guru Dwarka Dham ki Jai, Swami Bhaktivinda ki Jai, all glories to Despondency. All glories to Despondency. Thank you very much.
All glories to you, Śrīla Prabhupāda. All glories to you, Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. O my Lord Sri Krishna, the son of Vasudeva, the all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1:1:1. Narayanam namaskritya. Narayanam namaskritya. Naram cheva narottamam. Naram cheva narottamam. Devim Saraswatim Vyāsam. Devim Saraswatim Vyāsam. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. Tato Jayam Mudirayet. One should utter the means of conquest, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, after offering respectful obeisances 1, to the personality of Godhead, Narayana. 2, to the Naranarayana Rishi, who is the supermost human being. 3, to the Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning. Then 4, to Śrīla Vyāsadeva, the author, from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1 to 4. Welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. It's important to note that all the readings that we're conducting will be conducted from the original 1962 New Delhi Bhagavatam. And as we do every week, we will be reading a few very nice, Krishna Katha Prabhu is showing, the first 3 volumes of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, a very nice reprint, which Śrīla Prabhupāda designed that picture of the spiritual world with the picture of Goloka Vrindavan, as well as the Vaikuntha spiritual world. As we do every week, we will be reading the meaning of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and the benefit of hearing anything from this great transcendental literature. This is from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 2, Text 16 and 17. Shrinvatam Svakata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridyantasto Hyabadrani Vidunoti Suritsatam. Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, who is also the Paramatma in everyone's heart and the benefactor of the truthful devotee, does cleanse the desire for material enjoyment in the heart of the devotee who has developed the urge for hearing his, Krishna's messages, which are themselves virtuous when properly heard and chanted. Text number 18. Nashta prayeshu vabhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in the Bhagavatam class or rendering service unto the pure devotees, all that is inauspicious in the heart of a candidate becomes destroyed almost to nil, and thus loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, comes into being an irrevocable fact. Text 19. Tadarajastamo bhava kamalo bhadayaschaye chetayete ranaviddham stitam sattve prasidati. As soon as irrevocable loving service is fixed up in one's heart, at that time, the effects of the nature's mode of passion and ignorance, such as lust, desire and hankerings, etc., do disappear from one's heart, and he becomes fixed up in the mode of goodness, which makes him completely happy. Text 20. Evam prasanna manasu bhagavad bhakti yogataha bhagavad tattva vijnanam mukta sangasya jayate. Thus, when one is positively fixed up in the mode of unalloyed goodness, the enlivened-minded man, affected by contact of devotional service of the Lord, can positively know scientific knowledge of the personality of Godhead in the stage of liberation from all material association. Again, welcome everyone to this reading and discussion on Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This week we will be reading from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, text number 8 and 9, I believe. text number 9. Okay.
9 and 10, Prabhu.
9 and 10, that's fine. Yata dharmadayas-charta munivarya anukirtitaha natata vasudevasya mahimahi anuvarnitaha yata as dharmadayas, all the 4 principles of religious principles, cha, and artha, purposes, munivarya, by yourself, the great sage, anukirtitaha, repeatedly described, not, tata, in that way, Vasudevasya, of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, Mahima, he, Mahima, glories, he certainly, Anuvarnitaha, so constantly described. Translation. As you, the great sage, have very broadly described the 4 principles beginning with religious performances, so you have not described glories of the Supreme Personality, Vasudeva. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. The prompt diagnosis of Sri Narada is at once declared. The root cause of despondency of Sri Vyāsadeva was due to his deliberate avoidance of glorifying the Lord in his various editions of the Puranas. He has certainly, as a matter of course, given descriptions of the glories of the Lord Sri Krishna, but not so widely as he had done in the matter of religiosity, economic development, sense gratifications, and salvation. These 4 items are by far the inferior engagement of the living being than being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. Sri Vyāsadeva, as the authorized scholar, knew very well this difference of the above-mentioned 2 classes of engagements. And still, instead of giving more importance to the better type of engagements, namely in the devotional service of the Lord, he had more or less improperly used the valuable time of his life, and thus he was despondent. From this, it is clearly indicated that nobody can be pleased substantially without being engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita, this fact is clearly mentioned. After liberation, which is the last item in the line of performing religiosity, etc., one is engaged in the pure devotional service. This is called the stage of self-realization, or Brahmabhuta stage. After attainment of this Brahmabhuta stage, one is symptomized with the signs of satisfaction. But satisfaction is the beginning of transcendental bliss. One should push further on progress of the Brahmabhuta status by neutrality and equality of the relative world. After passing this stage of equanimity, one is fixed up in the transcendental, loving, devotional service of the Lord. This is the instruction of the personality of Godhead in the Bhagavad Gita. The conclusion is that in order to maintain the status quo of Brahmabhuta stage, as also to increase the degree of such transcendental realization, it is recommended by Narada to Vyāsadeva that he, Vyāsadeva, should now impatiently and repeatedly describe the path of devotional service. This would cure him from gross despondency of life. Text number 10. Natadvachas chitrapadam harera yasha jagat pavitram pragrinitak karichit tadvayasam tiriyam ushanti manasa nayatraham sa niramanti ushikshayaha na not tad that vachas vocabulary chitrapadam decorative Harer of the Lord, Yasho glories, Jagat universe, Pavitram sanctified, Pragrinita described, Karichit hardly, Tad that, Vayasam crows, Tirtam pilgrimage, Ushanti think, Manasa, saintly persons, Na, not, Yatra, where, Hamsa, all perfect beings, Niramanti, take pleasure, Ushikshaya, those who reside in the transcendental abode. Translation: the set of vocabulary in which there is no description of the glories of the Lord, which can sanctify the whole universal atmosphere, is considered by the saintly person as the pilgrimage of the crows, where the all-perfect persons do not derive any pleasure on account of their being inhabitant of the transcendental abode. The crows purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. The crows and the ducks are not the birds of the same feather on account of their different mental attitude. Similarly, the fruitive workers or the passionate man is compared with the crows, whereas the all-perfect saintly persons are compared with the ducks and swans. The crows do take pleasure in a place where refuse remnants of foodstuff are thrown out as much as the passionate fruitive worker do take pleasure in wine and women and similar places for gross sense pleasure. The ducks and swans do not take pleasure in the place where crows are assembled for conferences and meetings, but they are very rarely seen, particularly in the atmosphere of natural scenic beauty, where there is transparent reservoir of water, nicely decorated with stems of lotus flower and variegated, colorful natural beauty. That is the difference between the two classes of birds. Nature has influenced different species of life by different mentality of the living entities, and it is not possible to bring them up in the same rank and file. Similarly, there are different kinds of literature for study of different types of men of different mentality. Mostly the market literatures which attract men of the crows categories are literatures containing refuse remnants of sensuous topics. They are generally known as mundane talks in relation with the gross body and subtle mind. They are full of subject matter described in decorative language, full of mundane poetic and literary art by similes and metaphorical arrangement. But what all they are, void in the matter of glorifying the Lord. Such decorative poetry and prose on any subject matter is considered as decoration of the dead body and the superficial agitated mind. Spiritually advanced men who are compared with the swans do not take pleasure in such dead literatures, which may be sources of pleasure for men who are spiritually dead. These literatures in the modes of passion and ignorance are distributed under different labels, but hardly they can help mitigating spiritual urge of the human being, and as such, the swan-like, spiritually advanced men have nothing to do with such mundane remnants. Such spiritually advancements are called also the manasas, because such saintly persons do always keep up to the standard of transcendental voluntary service of the Lord in the spiritual planes, which forbids attraction completely from fruitive activities for gross bodily sense satisfaction or subtle speculation of the material egoistic mind. Social literary men, scientists, mundane poets, theoretical philosophers, politicians who are completely absorbed in the material advancements of sense pleasure are all dolls of the material energy. They do take pleasure in a place where the same rejected subject matters are thrown. According to Swami Sridhar, such places are compared with the pleasure of the prostitute hunters. But literatures which describe the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmiritam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Śrīmate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Bhakti Siddhanta Shishyayam Bhakti Vedanta Namine Prasannaya Prashantaya Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Bhagavad Vandanam Khadyam Guru Vandana Purvakam Kshiram Sarkara Yuktam Kadatehi Visheshataham Adadana Dantaridam Yati Punaha Punaha Śrīmad-Rūpa Padam Bhoja Dhulishyam Janma Janmani Amsho Bhagavatosmyaham Sadadasu Asmi Sarvata Tatkripa Pikshako Nityam Tatpreshta Karomi Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yesterday, one devotee sent me a link to Lord Krishna's birthplace in Mathura. It's called Krishna Janmastan, and the history of that wonderful place. Originally, the temple had been built by Krishna's grandson, Vrajanabha. And over the years, with the invasion of various Muslim invaders or Mohammedan invaders, the temple had been destroyed, and every time it was rebuilt by various Vaishnava kings, and ultimately resulting, there is a current legal dispute with regards to that site. It is very complex and convoluted, and various followers of Sanatana Dharma are trying to establish the exact place where Lord Krishna, called the Garbhagriha, the place where Vyāsadeva and Devaki gave birth to Lord Krishna. It is there in Mathura, but there is also a mosque that had then been built when the last Vaishnava temple had been devastated by Aurangzeb in 1670. And in 1947, when India gained its independence, one very famous industrialist, Yugal Kishore Birla, along with one Mr. Dalmia, and Hanuman Prasad Podar, who incidentally was a good friend and admirer of Śrīla Prabhupāda, of our Śrīla Prabhupada, they joined together and they established a trust to build a temple. There's a current temple next to the place where Krishna was born. So now they're trying to ascertain, trying to build exactly on that spot. It will take some time, like it took some time with the Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. The point being of this is that there will always be a class of men that will be inclined towards the spiritual topics of the Lord, glorification of the Lord. And this is the exact topic in these two verses here with these beautiful long purports by Śrīla Prabhupada. Prabhupada, is especially in this text number 10, is making a very clear difference by giving the example of the crows and the swans. The crows do not mix with the swans. They don't. Just like down the hill from where we live, there is a little lake. We live on the side of a mountain in the forest, and as one goes down, there is a little lake there. And occasionally there are ducks and swans that go there. But we don't see the crows swimming with the ducks and swans. It just does not happen. Why? Well, Prabhupada explains, and he gives the comparison to the materialistic people that are engaged, that are absorbed in the sense gratification pertaining to the body and the mind. They're absorbed on that platform. And those who are aspiring transcendentalists and transcendentalists who are absorbed in the spiritual topics of the Lord and the incarnations of Krishna, the activities of Krishna, they're absorbed on a different platform. So this is very important because we see in the last sentence of text number 10, Śrīla Prabhupada summarized all of this. He says, but literatures which describes the glories of the Lord are enjoyed by the Paramamsas who have grasped the essence of human activities. It's interesting to note how Prabhupada uses the language sometimes of how he defines Paramamsas or Mahatmas or pure devotees. Prabhupada uses all-inclusive language, including various practitioners, such as our humble selves, devotees who are practicing the process of devotional service. He will describe them sometimes as Mahatmas, as pure devotees. But other times he makes very specific reference to the exalted position of the factual Paramamsas and the factual great Mahatmas. And one has to use his intelligence to distinguish, very fine distinction. Now, Prabhupada many times is very critical of literatures that have nothing to do with description of Krishna. There's a famous statement where one devotee asked Śrīla Prabhupada about various events that took place in the French Revolution in France. And one person quoted Marie Antoinette, who was asked a question that people have no bread to eat. And Marie Antoinette replied, well, let him eat cake. And Prabhupada's comment was, what does this have to do with Lord Chaitanya's movement? In other words, he's thinking like a Paramamsa, like a topmost Paramamsa, who is only concerned with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his movement and topics of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Now, there's another class of persons who pose as devotees, who pretend to be devotees, but they become very expert at another practice. They become professional fault finders. And occasionally it goes further. Professional gossipers. Then it goes a little further. Professional insulters. Now, this is the path, if one is not careful to avoid the 6 pitfalls against the progressive path of bhakti recommended by Rupa Goswami in his Upadeshamrita, so nicely translated by Śrīla Prabhupāda as the nectar of instruction, this is what happens. I mean, there's very clear instructions. Niyamagraha, neglecting the proper rules. Gossip. There are very, very good reasons why these great acharyas have summarized the 6 principles that increase bhakti and the 6 principles that destroy bhakti. Prajalpa niyamagraha, shadbir bhaktir vinashyati. Prajalpa, loose talk, gossip, because it's a progressive path. It's a progressive path on the road to non-devotion, to becoming critical of devotees, to becoming offenders of devotees, and gradually insult devotees. Now, if somebody has a legitimate issue based on facts, not exaggerations, not fabrications, not nonsense, we'll listen to it. Just like we know that there are people that are properly trained as investigators, detective, certain police people, army people, investigators. And they know by questioning somebody who is a suspect, or what they call in law, a person of interest, they can tell by the kind of responses if they're being evasive, if they're being exceedingly nervous, if they're avoiding answering the question. Because they're not stupid, they have all kinds of investigative tools. They can find out the records of their cell phone. They can find out the records of their communication. They can talk to their neighbors. They can talk to their relatives. They can find out a lot of things. And by the time they investigate, they can tell after some time, is this person being straightforward? Is he being honest? Or is he trying to be deceptive? And this is why Rupa Goswami has put in that verse, Prajalpa niyamagraha. We all know Prabhupada has given very detailed instruction, very detailed explanation that we should follow the proper rules and regulations of devotional life. This is well known to every devotee. But devotees sometimes forget there are other rules. Just like there is one lecture where Prabhupada was talking about gambling, and Prabhupada gambling and no mental speculation. Our process is a process of accepting the authority. We don't speculate or misinterpret everything. This is very important. Very important. We had the good opportunity at one point to be in Śrīla Prabhupāda's presence in Vrindavan, and one very wealthy life member had come to visit Śrīla Prabhupāda, and he had brought a pandit with him, a big pandit who knew Sanskrit, speaking Sanskrit. So they're talking to Prabhupada in Hindi, and Prabhupada occasionally would have a little bit of English and things. And this pandit had brought a manuscript of the Manu Samhita, very famous law book, which is often cited by Śrīla Prabhupāda. And this had palm leaves with the old indelible ink, and he was quoting. And Prabhupada all of a sudden at one point, oh, this fellow here, this devotee, he knows Brahma Samhita, he knows this Manu Samhita, he studied Manu Samhita. And I was like, what? I only knew one verse that I studied from one of Prabhupada's books, and I quoted the verse that one should never be alone for a woman, that a person who is learned, neither with his mother or his daughter or his sister, because even a greatly learned man can be influenced by the senses. And the Pandit was like, he was stunned. He was like, he was shaking his head, and a life member, we're looking at Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada, instead of taking the credit, because he's the one that was really teaching all of us Manu Samhita or any Samhita. We didn't really know anything. It was all his mercy and his kindness to teach us this Vedic knowledge. Prabhupada starts talking about his disciples, how they have learned Vedic knowledge, how they are preaching, they're doing Ratha Yatra, they're worshiping the deities, they're engaged in preaching. He was doing constant like that, giving credit to his disciple, when the real credit really belonged to him, because we, the knuckleheads, his disciples, didn't really know much. We didn't really know much. But by his kindness and his mercy, he's delivering the transcendental message of the Bhagavatam, Manu Samhita, Brahma Samhita, everything. So that is the kindness of Śrīla Prabhupada. And to go back to the original point that I was discussing, devotees should be very careful how we behave with other devotees. Especially, I've seen this tendency of devotees to exaggerate and fabricate and concoct and not deal with facts, not deal with actual facts. Because then they go into inventing and manufacturing interpretation. And then it goes a little further. They become angry. They will insult. There's no need for that. If you have an actual disagreement with a devotee, take it up to them personally, individually. If you take it up in public and start insulting and manufacturing and using bad adjectives, then you're going to the path of aparad, ninda. Ninda means insulting. There's no need for that. We have seen plenty of examples of that. And this is not what Śrīla Prabhupada has taught. This is not what Rupa Goswami has taught. And this is definitely not the behavior that we should condone or follow. Because there are reactions. We have seen and will be seeing. There are reactions if you insult devotees. Control your temper. Control your anger. Do not insult other Vaishnavas to whom it may concern. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Haribol, thank you very much for that wonderful discussion and explanation of these verses found in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam and the purports that give us insight between the difference between the swan class of men and the crows. And this is what we're trying to do, is move into the class of the swan, not the crow. And we're brought up in a society that is not teaching people how to act properly. And here, especially in the West, the conditioning is very deep and very bewildering. People are bewildered to understand what is the difference between knowledge and ignorance. So here in the West, people have no understanding, practically speaking, of how to act as human beings. They're more animals, sophisticated cats and dogs. I had a very interesting experience you showed in Nandana Prabhu, where a high school teacher came to the front door 2 days ago to see his brother who's residing here at the ashram. And I had a chance to speak to him briefly. We talked about Krishna and my involvement with the Krishna movement. And I mentioned to him that we followed the principle of no meat eating. Now, it was interesting to note that he could not comprehend what that meant. He looked at me, "You don't eat meat?" I told them, well, we don't eat meat, we don't eat chicken, we don't eat eggs, we don't eat fish. He shook his head like completely bewildered. Is that possible? I can't believe that. This is a teacher, a high school principal. And I'm explaining a very simple thing about diet. Actually, most people nowadays understand that there's definite health implications, defects in a bad diet. Oh. And interestingly enough, Yashodanandana Prabhu, Prabhupada's teachings of the vegetarian diet through Krishna Prasadam have influenced the whole shift towards the vegan, vegetarian, not so much the vegan one, that's another topic, but in America and Canada, it is the Krishna consciousness movement is the number one movement that changed people's attitude towards the difference between eating meat and not eating meat. Our movement, Prabhupada's teachings, because people back in the day thought that we were brainwashed. Brainwashed, yes. We had an incident with a fellow, Ted Patrick, and he was a person that was involved in the business of deprogramming devotees. And people would pay large amounts of money to have them come, kidnap their kids out of the temples, take them to a neutral area and try to deprogram them. In fact, we had a situation in Toronto where there was a devotee, her name was Rudrani, Linda Epstein. And they hired Ted Patrick to come up from America and kidnap her out of the temple. I think it was 1974. And they did that. They kidnapped her. They took her away to Nova Scotia and put her in a motel and wanted to make her normal again. And what was that normality? Well, you got to watch TV. So they make her watch TV. They said that getting up early in the morning at the Brahma Muhurta hour and chanting your rounds and attending Mangal Arti, going to bed at 10 or 9:30 and getting up at 4 and going to the program, that was sleep deprivation. And then they said, oh, these people, they make you repeat the same mantra over and over and over again because we were chanting japa every day. That's mind control. Pretty insane. The swan class of men and the crows. So the crows, they're criticizing the swans. And lastly, they said that if you don't eat meat, it's food deprivation. Krishna Katha may be aware of this, was used in the Second World War by the Germans, where they would deprive people of so-called their nourishment, and this would make them weak and susceptible to being under the control of others. So they said that our eating of prasadam was food deprivation, no meat. So they tried to get us to eat meat. This is the situation that we find ourselves, and Prabhupada's described it brilliantly in these verses of the Bhagavatam, the difference between the swan class of men and the crows, the divine and the demoniac, which are also described in detail in the Bhagavad Gita. And these two groups are in constant competition, the devotees and the demons. This is a society of demons. Very much so. Where everything is based on I, me, and mine. My house, my car, my family, my money. Everything is mine. And if you don't do what I say, I'm going to go away. Huh? People are bought by money. That's how people in this modern world operate. You pay me, I'll do whatever you want. So this is a battle, the battle of truth, the truth between reality and illusion. And the reality is Krishna consciousness. And Prabhupada brought that forward when he came to America. There was a situation that came up where they came to the temple in Toronto. The Attorney General, his office came to see me. They said, "You're brainwashing people." I said, "We are?" And I told them, I said, "Well, okay, let's do this." I said to them, "Here, take this Bhagavad Gita and go read it. And after you read it, come back and tell me if this philosophy that we're presenting is brainwashing anyone." They never came back. Prabhupada did the same thing in New York City when we were on trial. He had Adi Keshava. He wanted Adi Keshava to read the Bhagavad Gita into the transcript of the trial. You're accusing us of brainwashing. Prabhupada told us, yes, it's true. We are clearing the brains of people. We're cleansing them of all material contamination. Not brainwashing people. That's a manipulation of people for personal motive and material aspirations, using Krishna as a business, not using Krishna consciousness as a source of liberation. Yes, people have to be trained. There's no question of that, Yashodanandana Prabhu. And you brought up a very good point about control of the tongue. You control the tongue by eating Krishna Prasadam, and you control the tongue by speaking about Krishna to others and chanting the holy name. These are the ways of making advancement in spiritual life. And the more we can minimize prajalpa, the more we can minimize these other mundane states of mind which agitate everyone and everything, the more we'll begin to understand how to make advancement in spiritual life. It is discipline. Disciple means discipline. Oh, people don't want to hear that. What? I have to do this or that. Just like that professor or that high school teacher, principal. What? You don't eat meat? That's not possible. So this is the situation we're in. It's a very educational experience for everyone, and we encourage everyone to continue on with the battle, the personal battle in your life and the personal battles that you encounter every day, to present Prabhupada's teachings and his opportunity to go back to Godhead to the conditioned souls that are rotting in this material world. Yashodanandana Prabhu, please. Microphone.
You've raised some very important points, and I wanted to read here
Yes.
from a purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 156. Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila, chapter 19, text 156. This is a very interesting discussion by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with Rupa Goswami. He says, Yadi Vaishnava Parada Uti Ati Mata, Upade Bachinde Tarashuki Yaya Pata. If the devotee commits an offense at the feet of a Vaishnava while cultivating the creeper of devotional service in the material world, His offense is compared to a mad elephant that uproots the creeper and breaks it. In this way, the leaves of the creeper are dried up. Purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. One's devotional attitude increases in the association of a Vaishnava. Tandera charana sevi bhakta sanibas, janame janame oi abhilash. By his personal example, Narottam Das Thakur stresses that a devotee must always remember to please his predecessor Acharya. The Goswamis are represented by one's spiritual master. One cannot be an Acharya, spiritual master, without following strictly in the disciplined succession of the Acharyas. One who is actually serious in advancing in devotional service should desire only to satisfy the previous Acharyas. Echai gosayar muitarodas. One should always think of oneself as a servant of the Acharyas, and thinking this, one should live in the society of Vaishnavas. However, if one thinks that he has become very mature and can live separate from the association of Vaishnavas, and thus gives up all the regulative principles due to offending a Vaishnava, one's position becomes very dangerous. Offenses against the holy name are explained in Adilila, chapter 8, text, verse 24. Giving up the regulative principles and living according to one's whims are compared to a mad elephant, which by force uproots the bhaktilata and breaks it to pieces. In this way, the bhaktilata shrivels up. Such an offense is especially created when one disobeys the instructions of the spiritual master. This is called Guru Avagnya. The devotee must therefore be very careful not to commit offenses against the spiritual master. As soon as one is deviated from the spiritual master, the uprooting of the bhaktilata begins and gradually all the leaves dry up. And this is why we recommend that devotees come regularly to hear Bhagavad Gita, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita. This is association, taking advantage of modern technology and hearing the message of Lord Krishna in association with devotees and discuss so we can maintain our spiritual life and increase our association with the pure devotees of Prabhupada and move forward in our spiritual advancement. Hare Krishna.
Very interesting points being presented from the Shastra for everyone's contemplation and understanding. This is not easy to comprehend, actually, because there's a combination of activities that have to go on in order to get what's called vijnanam, realization. In other words, you can practice Krishna consciousness, but unless you surrender to the process of Krishna consciousness, actually make commitments and perform devotional service, it's called jagya, Sankirtan jagya. It's a sacrifice. We have to be prepared to sacrifice for the service of the Lord. This sacrificing of your time, Prabhupada was mentioning here about time, and time is our most valuable asset of all things. You cannot buy back 1 second of time for millions of gold coins. People are not aware of this. They're bewildered. They think time is in abundance. Oh, I have all this time. I can do anything I want. And look at how fast time is moving, Krishna Katha. Look at how old we are. No one ever thought that when Prabhupada used to say, oh, I'm an old man, and we were young men, we think, well, he is, but we're not going to get old. And all of a sudden, here we are. We're old men. Not all of us here, but some are. And so we're trying to help the younger people understand. Trust us when we tell you, time goes like this. So it's most important for us to capture our time in this offenseless attitude of devotional service. Do not get caught up in all of this trivial trivia that goes on, especially Yashodanandana Prabhu. We see that the internet is, we describe it as a cottage industry. You know what a cottage industry is. In other words, you have a little house and you decide to put a table out front of your house and sell lemonade. Hey, I'm in business. I got my lemonade business. Anybody can put a table out front of their house and sell lemonade. So anybody can get online these days. There is laws that are starting to protect people from slander. There's a lot of slander going on. But in the meantime, most people, they carry on without any sort of worry that they'll be sued, but they could be for slander. So, but they're in the cottage industry of the internet. Here I am, I've got a big mouth, let me blab it everywhere. This is going on in the material world everywhere. We should be cautious with that. And Dharma Bhavanam, I see some people have got their hands up. We'll move to those as we move along in the talk. Dharma Bhavana in Dallas, Texas. Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna, thank you. A wonderful class. There's an example how events and challenges for the Vaishnavas are there in our books, just like we were talking about today, and
Yes.
relevant for all of us. And I apologize if the verse I'm about to read from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam is too repetitive, but I kind of think everybody should know this purport almost by heart.
Yes.
It's Canto 4, Chapter 28, text 48 through 51.
Canto
And,
4, what is it? Canto 4?
Canto 4, Chapter 28, text 48. And it kind of goes on to include text 51, all that area. I'm going to start with 48 and just read it. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, please go ahead.
O best of kings, please get up. Please get up, get up. Just see this world surrounded by water and infested with rogues and so-called kings. This world is very much afraid, and it is your duty to protect her. And it's purport by Śrīla Prabhupāda. Whenever an acharya comes, following the superior orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his representative, he established the principles of religion as enunciated in Bhagavad Gita. Religion means abiding by the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Religious principles begin from the time one surrenders to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is the Acharya's duty to spread a bona fide religious system and induce everyone to bow down before the Supreme Lord. One executes the religious principles by rendering devotional service, specifically the 9 items like hearing, chanting, and remembering. Unfortunately, when the Acharya disappears, rogues and non-devotees take advantage and immediately begin to introduce unauthorized principles in the name of so-called swamis, yogis, philanthropists, welfare workers, and so on. Actually, human life is meant for executing the orders of the Supreme Lord, and this stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:34. So I just kind of just want to mention how when this first came out, 4th canto, maybe 1974, 75 period, around that time, I probably read this maybe even a few times, but it didn't really make a mark on my consciousness. I never thought too much about it. But then after so many years, we read this, and we can see how this helps us. Śrīla Prabhupāda is predicting the future by explaining to us what happened in the past. And it's such a kind of meaningful verse. And also the same thing is described in detail the next couple of verses all the way through text 51. So I just wanted to read this, mention this. I thought it was so important that devotees should really read this several times in the Bhagavatam. It has so much meaning to it, all these verses, 48 through 51. Haribol, thank you.
Yeah, the fact of the matter is, when you were saying about repetitive, this type of explanation about fake gurus or fake preachers like that is all pervasive through Prabhupada's books, letters, and other lectures. So it's not, it's an explanation of the way things go on in this world. And so there's always going to be a lot of people that are going to use Krishna and Krishna consciousness as a business. We have Nilesh Sharma in Miami, Florida. How are you, Nilesh? I see
Hare
you got
Krishna,
the hand
Prabhuji.
up. We didn't get to you last time, but we're again here. Like I said, go ahead, please.
That's okay.
Sure.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Yes.
Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Jai
I
Prabhupada.
had a question, but the question was answered right away. So just wanted to kind of share my thoughts, is that
Yes.
Śrīla Prabhupada has not only influenced people in the West, but also people like me, where my upbringing was very different than most others. You mentioned about a high school principal who never knew what was diet without meat, and I never ate meat during my childhood. But
Yeah.
then as the so-called mundane education or materialistic education evolves, and remember that we all were taught the nutrition chart, and where they were mentioning that poultry and meat is an inherent part of your diet for a healthy diet, you see. So what we have now realized over the decades, that these charts were influenced by corporate America, by corporations to what you call promote their products, promote their edible products. So
Yeah.
while growing up, I always had questioned my parents, is that why are we vegetarians? Says, oh, because we should not kill life. I said, you're killing potatoes, you're killing radishes, you're killing uprooting plants. No matter what, you're going to kill life. When you eat one grain, you are killing a potential life. It is a seed, you see. So either way, whatever, you're not going to eat stones, you're not going to eat rubble, you're not going to eat mud, you're going to eat life. And this prompted me to start eating meat. I used to eat meat in my late teens and early 20s because this question was never answered to me. So imagine the effect of Śrīla Prabhupada over a spectrum of people. On one end of the spectrum are people who ate nothing but meat. On the other end of the spectrum, they were vegetarians, but did not know why they are vegetarians. You see?
Hmm.
So the question was always that whole spectrum that Prabhupada answers so wonderfully in through the process of Krishna consciousness, is that until and unless we don't put Krishna in the center, we will be lost in this whole spectrum. You may be in one end of the spectrum or the other end of the spectrum. But until and unless we don't put Krishna in the center, it will not change. Your perspectives, you will still be committing offenses. Does not matter what. So that is why the real intelligence comes is when no matter what, you're going to eat life. So whether I kill a plant or I kill an animal, I am going to incur sinful reactions. But what is it that will stop me from incurring any sinful reactions?
Uh-huh.
And this is the spectrum which Prabhupada answers to everyone. So I'm the other part of the spectrum who went to meat eating and then went back to no meat eating. But there are people you mentioned about who only eat meat, and people like yourself and Yashodanand Prabhu and many other devotees who used to eat meat and stopped eating meat, but in a correct fashion that we understand things. The second part, which is we are always labeled as Ritwiks as Vaishnava Aparadhis. We are always criticizing. We are always doing this. This is a Vaishnava Aparadh. And the very verses which were quoted as the quote of the as one uproots, a mad elephant uproots a garden, we're doing those kinds of offenses because this is classically portrayed against us. But this is where the second part, which Yashodanand Prabhu said, is that a true Vaishnava is one who will follow his predecessing Acharya, who will not do Guru Avagna. And this is very critical. So before anybody labels you that you are doing Vaishnava Aparadh, think who that other person is, what is he doing, whether he is following the predecessing Acharya or not. Because this is very critical. So we need to address the whole jigsaw puzzle and fit it in properly so that we can understand exactly the situation and label what is aparadh and what is constructive criticism to stop the jiva from doing more aparadh. Hare Krishna.
Well, it's a wonderful science that we do have, Nilesh Shama, and it requires very detailed study. And so when we, like today, Dharma Bhavana read that beautiful purport from the Bhagavatam, it once again gave us an insight into what is the bona fide acharya and what isn't. So people can say this or that. Some people don't have the capacity to understand this philosophy for whatever reasons they have. But nonetheless, our job is, as all Prabhupada disciples, to present the truth that Prabhupada is still living with us in transcendental sound. And before we end the program today, I was going to ask our production manager, Vinod, if you could bring up the GoFundMe link. Do you have that by chance, Prabhu? I wanted to.
Let me look for it, yes.
Thank you. We've initiated a program, Nilesh Shama, to reprint the Delhi Bhagavatams as a collector's item for aspiring devotees and long-term devotees to get a copy of these books. And here it is, here are the original 1962, 64, 65 versions. Now our commitments have gone up from 2,200, and we want to thank Yasmin Varani for her donation yesterday of $1,000. And today I'm going to have my colleague here at the house use the internet to give $1,000 from myself for the program. And we have other people that have committed, so it's moving up. We've got tentatively $15,000 committed to the program. So thank everybody. We want to thank everybody who's come forward. And I'll just go over it. It's a program by the Prabhupada Disciples Association, Hare Krishna Society, which is our membership. And this is a GoFund drive to raise donations for the printing of the original Bhagavatams, the Delhi Bhagavatams by His Divine Grace. These treasured editions are the original books written, published, and distributed by His Divine Grace prior to His coming to America. These are the exact replicas of the books He brought with Him in trunks aboard the steamship Jaladuta from Calcutta and arriving in New York on September 19th, 1965. These treasured reprints of the original versions of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam provide comprehensive insight into the ancient mysteries of spiritual life from the pen of the pure devotee of Krishna, produced by him under the order of his spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Śrīla Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami. Śrīla Prabhupada, not certain of how much time he had left on this earthly plane, told us that these initial 3 volumes, there's a mistake there, of the first canto of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam contained all the knowledge necessary for a conditioned soul to waken his dormant Krishna consciousness in order to go back home, back to Godhead, even in this one lifetime. Please generously support everyone, this fundraising campaign and our efforts to reprint these most important books for the benefit of people now and in future generations. Along with the printing of the original Delhi first canto Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, we also want to print the 1969 Sri Upanishad and the original 1959 version of Easy Journey to Other Planets. The reprinting of the unedited, unadulterated books to protect the written legacy of Śrīla Prabhupāda is the most important service one can render in the service of God, Krishna, and humanity at large. The total cost for this project is as follows. We've got a very great quote for the printing. As you can see, first canto, 3-volume Delhi Bhagavatam 2,000 sets at $18,000 US. Now that's a little over $3.50 per book, hardbound and a replica. And the Upanishad and Easy Journey, $3,500. So the shipping's $2,500. So that's 4,000 books for $3,500. So it's less than $1 a book. And the shipping's $2,500 from India, etc. We're going to leave some books in India because our godbrothers there have a ambitious program for distributing books in that country as well. So that'll save some of the shipping. Total GoFundMe goal is $24,000. And we want to thank all of you, our members, for stepping up and participating in a contribution to this important mission we have undertaken to protect the legacy of A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada in his unadulterated presentation of the first canto of the Delhi Bhagavatams and these other books. So there's also a question about if there's any fees, and Ron Singh pointed out to me that there is a button on the GoFundMe page that you can, you don't have to give any money from the donation to them, but you have to push the button on this, on the, or the lever on the donation slot to say 0. And that way you can give the money without contributing any money to them necessarily. And all the money is going into our charitable organization, Hare Krishna Society, which is a registered charity in the US for people in the US that are donating. And we can forward a charitable receipt for you against your income tax submission. And in this way, you can also, that will also benefit you. And the society can use the money exclusively for book publications, which is the goal of this program. It's all the money. There is no administrative costs. There are no salaries. There is no other expenditure. The money will specifically be used for printing books. And the more we collect, the more we'll be able to expand book distribution for other people in other languages and other projects that we're going to do moving into the future. Krishna Kata, you wanted to make a comment, please.
Quick, I promise to be brief.
Yeah.
This is a realization that Vishwakarma Prabhu shared with me yesterday on a telephone call. And he made such a nice clarification of why all of this is happening and how it came to be that we are in the process of printing these treasures, these gems of knowledge from Śrīla Prabhupāda, is that rather than, you know, making contact with one person or two persons that we know are wealthy and asking them to come up with the whole amount, his realization is that this is Krishna's way, this is Prabhupada's way of engaging everyone, just like we were all engaged in book distribution from early on. And so you should all think of this as pleasing to Śrīla Prabhupada in the same way you were doing devotional service all these years. And the other realization that he had is that this is a way to put in check the out of control, running away with too much editing and offensive editing that is going on. And in today's verse, I got a realization that I'll share quickly, and that is this subtle ignorance of the mind. And we all know what ignorance means. It means to ignore. And so sometimes someone is so ignorant to what they're doing, they ignore the instructions of the spiritual master, thinking they are pleasing, but in fact they are not. So to get these books and other books, original transcripts and manuscripts, and authorized printing of Śrīla Prabhupada's books, this is a way to put in check this unabated and out of control editing business. that is just feeding one or two persons false sense of, I don't know, ego, right? So please give $20, whatever you can, because every dollar means that now you are engaged in this pastime of Śrīla Prabhupada. His pastime is still ongoing, and we are a part of it. His pastimes will continue to go on for the next 10,000 years or more. And we are right in the heart of a very important pastime of Prabhupada disciples. And Vishwakarma's realization was further. He said, imagine if all of this editing happened after Prabhupada's disciples, his original fighters, his warriors that are on this program, were already out of their body, back home, back to Godhead. Imagine if we weren't here to put this nonsense in check. So this is a realization from a devotee that made the phone call to me, and I'm sharing it all with you. We are right in the middle of a fight. And this is the best way to fight, rather than criticizing and pointing fingers like Yashoda Nandana was saying earlier. Just print Prabhupada's books, and Krishna will guide the Jiva soul to the right set of Bhagavatams. He will guide us to the right set for the serious seeker. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Hare Krishna. Jai Prabhupada.
Before we move to the kirtan.
Prabhu, you're on mute. Can you repeat?
Oh, Yashoda, Prabhu, a few closing comments from you. You're on
I
mute.
don't have, after all the good comments that have been made, I really don't have much to say. If you want to let the Puranjan say a word or two, you can do that. There's been a lot of words of wisdom on this session. Very much appreciated. Is Puranjan still there? Yes, no, maybe. There was
I don't
one
know.
devotee, I
No,
think it
that's
was
it.
Kevin G. At one point, he may have had his hand up, but I don't see his hand up now.
No,
So maybe
Puranjan's
we
gone.
can.
Puranjana's gone. That's okay. We're at 11:40 now. So we'll move to the kirtan. Thank you, everyone. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Jai.
Hare
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Let us offer our respectful obeisances to all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. Vanchakalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindubhya evacha patitanam pavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo namo namaha. I offer my respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desire trees, and who are full of compassion for the fallen souls. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Thanks everybody for participating. We'll see you all on Wednesday at 5 o'clock p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupāda.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnava Vangsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathannitam Tam Sajivam Sadaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna